that perspective for our week and reframe ourselves in the midst of these definitely challenging times, which we would hope would be sort of lifting us up as the weeks go on, but certain things in our world keep pushing us back down. So we need these connections. And today, I wanted, for those who don't know my friend Ren Hack, to be introduced to her and to learn about the great work that she's doing, really with a strong Jewish mission. Ren Hack and I go way back to when our children were in preschool and our work together as educators. She was the president of the Waldorf Kinderhouse 20 years ago and helped us bring some of that philosophy into the things we saw as very Jewish and studied together then. She continued in her work as a Jewish educator and now is executive director of Hazon in Detroit, really working for in the great work that's needed in hunger relief and in sustainability in our environment. So welcome, Ren.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. When you asked me, it was very easy. We have been, as you said, we have been friends a long time, and there's just whenever you ask me anything, there's like no question. Of course, I'm going to. And you guys have done the same at Shir Shalom. When I have asked and reached out, you have been there, and I'm so appreciative of it.
Well, that's what made me think of this in a sense of why I thought it'd be a great thing for us to talk about because there's so many in our community who have no idea of the work that Hazon is doing right now. And Ren called me 3 or 4 months ago and said, "Hey, do you have freezer space at Temple Shir Shalom? I just got 10 pallets of frozen chicken. We need to place somewhere because shelters that are able to serve it or give it out can't store that much." And so ends up we didn't have freezer space, but ironically, I was on the phone with a congregant who has a meat packing company, and we made a partnership, a bridge, and they were able to store it. Since then, we've become a dry goods storage place at Temple Shir Shalom, in a sense, a food pantry for other smaller food pantries, and helping. And Ren is spending time daily. I was asking her, Ren, did you jump onto this Zoom in after working out? Because I know Ren likes to work out as well. And she's like, yeah, she was just delivering food and unloading an 18 wheeler, I think, of
It's
food.
not that bad.
Single-handedly lifting pallets of frozen chicken, 2,000-pound pallets. But Ren, can you talk about some of the important work you're doing right now?
Yeah, let's go back in kind of in the story to the beginning of when COVID hit our community, which was back in March. We immediately, because Hazone is the lab for environmental sustainability. So one of the things we had been doing prior to COVID was starting a program of food rescue, recognizing that caterers and schools programs had extra food following a party, following the school day, whatever. They had extra food, and they were throwing it out because they didn't have a place to go. So we actually started, it was what started us on the food rescue was Maccabi Games last year when Detroit, JCC Detroit was hosting it. We were there to compost, but what we saw was also just anything extra from the lunches just literally being thrown in the trash. And so what we said to ourselves, like, we got to do something about this. And so we began to reach out to partners and move that food. So prior to COVID, we had done a bit of food rescue. We had started some partnerships, but nothing to the extent of what we are now. Then when COVID hit, we began, because of those partnerships, we began getting calls from warehouses saying, "Hey, listen, we had food coming into the city. It was already in the system. It has to come in, but it has no place to go. Can you guys, do something with it?" So we were literally driving into Detroit, into the warehouses by Eastern Market, and taking as much food as we could. And it was there that I actually met two young people, though there were far more. I had an opportunity to talk with them who had just literally lost their job the week before. They were in the hospitality system and they had lost their job. And already 1 week later, they were looking for food, free food, because they were without. And it struck me then as like, wow, we're going to have a problem. These were, college educated, what we would call, our suburban kids already hungry. I could only imagine what was going on actually in the inner city. So once we cleared out the warehouses and got it out to our partners, we began thinking, what can we do? And the first program that we actually created was a garden relief initiative. We thought, here we are, Hazone, connected to the earth, growing. Let's let's get other people growing, and they can help pantries. So we set up a system whereby we delivered 2 5-gallon buckets of compost, 3 packets of seeds, and we would take it wherever anybody needed it. Now, again, as I mentioned before, our thought going in was that people were going to grow for others. What we found out is we ultimately ended up doing over 400 deliveries in 42 cities. And what we found out is for many of them, for the greater majority of people, they were growing for themselves. I was literally delivering in Detroit to, the blighted areas where the houses were boarded up, but people had land and were hoping to grow something. There were
Mm.
certainly people who we were delivering that we're going to grow extra, and that's now we're seeing the fruits of that labor, because people are letting us know, hey, I just delivered a yadas, or hey, I just delivered a hospitality house, and it was only 6 cucumbers and 5 pounds of zucchini. But people, just to understand what that means, fresh produce literally being grown here means so much to those who don't have. Then, as I said, the next step for us was the food, getting really serious into the food rescue. What we were finding was pantries were getting deliveries that either they could take what they needed, but they didn't have the storage space to take the overage. So they didn't have enough refrigerator space, they didn't have enough freezer space. And so they would call us and say, hey, can you do anything with this? So we started literally moving overages from one pantry and going to it, taking it to another. And that was coming out of the city to the suburbs, into the city from the suburbs. So it ultimately, we created a database of over 34 sites. We work with 34 pantries. We also work with Food Rescue US, which comes into the city once a week with produce boxes. But even that, I can tell you, and I know you'll ask me this anyway, how great is the need? Because I know your brain.
Thank you. Wait one second. Hey, Ren, how great's the need currently?
Oh, that's a really good question, Michael. I'm so
Thank,
glad you asked that.
thank you.
You
You
are.
can chat me what I should ask next time if you want, so no one knows that I'm like that obtuse sometimes.
um, the need is really incredible. To give you an example, just on Friday, we received a call from an Orthodox family who has set up a pantry in Oak Park and are servicing 250 families.
Wow.
Now, they literally just set it up in their backyard. Um, we also have a minister in Rosedale who he himself set up something in his backyard, who is serving over 100 families. We have somebody in Rosedale, um, I'm sorry, Redford, who's doing the same thing. The pantries, um, let's say like Hospitality House is in Commerce, and they're one of our largest pantries. They're government funded, which is few and far between, other than like Gleaners and Forgotten Harvest. But they serve 200, 300 families a week. And I often go there on Saturday mornings to drop off. And the line, they don't open until 9 o'clock, but the line, I mean, they don't open, I'm sorry, until 11 o'clock. The line starts at 9 o'clock.
Gosh.
And it's, and also, as we know, Temple Israel has a pantry. They went from 80 to 180 families. Temple Kolami has created a pantry out of need. And so the help, and I must say this, the help that Temple Shir Shalom is giving us is huge, because not only are we moving food from pantry to pantry, but we're also, whenever we have the opportunity to stockpile something, A lot of businesses have called us and said, listen, we're going out of business, but I have what was it, gluten-free crackers, or I have cauliflower rice. Notice I gave that one for you.
Thank you,
uh,
thank you. Well, who would think that 4,000 pounds of pasta would be sitting in our social hall? But the reality that we are able to rescue that, hold that until it can be utilized and get to the right people. The one thing you've taught me is that there is actually enough food. It's just connecting these dots and getting it to people who have the need. If I can pause for a moment, I want to share this week's Torah portion because it's so relevant to what we're talking about and give us some text for our discussion right now. Because look at this in Parsha Re'eh in the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 15, it says, "There shall be no needy among you." Right, since God has blessed you in your land and is giving you this as a inheritance, to make sure. And Rashi says, well, but there might be needy among you, right? And so why will that be? And some say, well, it's because how we follow the laws. But again, 3 verses later, if, however, there is a needy person among you, I mean, it's almost as if our week's Torah portion contradicts itself within its same chapter, knowing that there will be needy. If there is, you cannot harden your heart or shut your hand. You must open your hand and lend him sufficient for whatever he needs. Give to him readily. Have no regrets when you do so. God will bless you in all your efforts. There will never cease to be needy ones in your land. And that reality is that there will never cease to be needy among us. There's so much work to be done, but we learn in Pirkei Avot, more. It's not your duty to finish the task. We can't stop from trying. There's so much work to do, but look how far Ren Hazon has brought us. You've taken us in these few months right now. I mean, 5 months ago, did you ever think you'd be doing this? Right?
no.
Honestly, I mean, this has always been part of your mission, your passion. Social justice is a part of your core. But honestly, right, the reality of what we've seen and how it's developed.
Now, I can truly say I did not think I would be driving a large, what do they call it, high ceiling caravan around town with literally, pallet. Right now, I have 3 pallets of food that I just picked up this morning that it'll be gone by this afternoon. Um, so no, I did not think, but it was also, and you can remind me, Michael. One of the things that really drove me, one of the Torah texts was, and I always fail to remember the whole thing, that we are not free to desist.
Right.
Uh,
That's just, yeah, from Pirkei Avot, that we can't stop from trying, even though we might. It's not our duty to finish a task, but we can't stop from trying.
and to me, while it's been a big part of my life, it's also been, I felt it was the absolute right thing for Hazon to pivot towards. Uh, while we're involved in environmental sustainability, I could not abide by food being thrown out when I knew it could be utilized. And so much food was being wasted and thrown out. And not because people didn't care. People were caring. And but it just, our food system is a bit broken. For example, we deliver to Brightmoor every week, and Brightmoor is one of our poorest communities in Detroit. And they are they get a delivery from our food banks every week, but they don't always get what's culturally appropriate for them. For instance, when I showed up one day, they had 60 cases of English cukes, the nice long individually wrapped cucumbers. Great. Take that smile off your face. Um, that's better. And it's great, but it can't feed anybody. And so we were able to take 30 cases, but as a result, I couldn't get any more in what I was at that time driving, which was my pickup truck. And so 30 cases just sat there rotting in the sun. And that's not right. We don't have to do it. And with volunteers and with somebody like Shir Shalom, who's what Shir Shalom's doing with your food drive is you're filling in the pockets that we may not be able to rescue. I can tell you, like, hey, we need canned goods, we need pasta. I love the pasta deal because what was it? We were talking with you and Rabbi Daniel, and I'm like, I need pasta. I'm short on pasta. And Daniel's like, what? Pasta? How much do you need? And I'm like, how much of you can give it me? And suddenly, 3 days later, there's just like 2,000 pounds of sitting in your social hall. And it's fantastic because we can feed everyone in the city and in the suburbs, but we have to educate ourselves on hunger and what it actually looks like. Hunger is not the person just the person who's sitting by the side of the road with a sign, I'm hungry. It's your neighbor who
Mhm.
lost their job and whose unemployment has been cut, and who has had struggles. And now it's a choice between, do I go to the grocery store or do I pay my mortgage or my rent? And we're seeing the lines and the need grow more and more. And the fall and winter are my biggest concerns. And that's why we're stockpiling, and why I'm so grateful to Shir Shalom for, one, allowing us to stockpile, but two, also for doing the food drive, because
Makes You're welcome. I'm glad we can. The need is real. The opportunities are so possible right now for us, and this is a time to use all of our relationships, our connections, to help one another. As we get ready to conclude this morning, I want to share. I found this quote at the bottom here from Glennon Doyle. Referenced this in her book Untamed. There comes a time where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they are falling in. And it's from Desmond Tutu. And I think some of the stuff that you referenced it's a greater challenge we have. We're patching, some of the holes right now and getting people fed, but we have a bigger challenge ahead of us as well. Not just these upcoming months, but in our community. But again, we have to use all of our connections to help one another. One of the many needs we have. Hey, at Temple Shir Shalom, not only is our social hall being right now used as a warehouse, in a sense, as a pantry for dry goods. We have bins out in front of Temple. You can drop off food at any time, dry goods. We bring them in every day. It's sealed containers. You can drop off goods there and help us. And that's what Ren was referencing, that we patch, we make up some of those differences there to help one another. Hazon Detroit, you can find them online. You can shoot either of us questions on Facebook, on our YouTube, and we'll respond to them more about this. Again, Monday Morning Musings, it's just a quick touch to let you know some of the good work that's happening, but also to think about what really matters most and how we are responsible for one another. And there's never a time that we've experienced where we really feel that. We realize at times in these days how much we're not in control of the greater world, but how much we still can control what we respond, how we do, what we make different, and how we reach out to one another. So we're blessed to be part of this community, this Jewish community that is helping not just ourselves, but those outside of ours. And you're a blessing to Temple Shir Shalom, to Hazon, to Detroit, to the Jewish community, and the work you're doing relentlessly, tirelessly, passionately, and with joy and with love. And we appreciate it. So thanks for being a part of Monday Morning Musings. I cut you off in there. Was there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
Michael, you do such a beautiful wrap up. Why would I attempt to insert myself into that in any way? No, thank you so much. My one parting word is, everybody has the ability to help a neighbor, and that's what this is. It's neighbors helping neighbors, and let us all think about what's that one thing we can do. So
Thank you,
thank
Ren.
you. Love being here with you, and have a wonderful week.
Hey, one last thing. Pay attention to our world and to the people in it, because that's what made this all happen. You noticed what was needed, and people asking for help, and some not asking but needing it, and what we're able to do together. So it really is great work. Thank you, Brian Fishman, our executive director at Temple Shir Shalom, being behind the scenes and helping coordinate our food pantry at Temple right now. Appreciate you, Brian, doing all this. Tomorrow, 12 o'clock, we're going to Israel again with Rabbi Daniel and Benny. So if you want to be a part of that class, let us know. It's a Zoom class. And for the rest of you at Cheer Shalom, see you at 6:30 on Friday night for our services. Thank you, everyone, and have a good week. Take care of each other and stay safe. Thanks, Ren.
Take care. You bet.